So let's go to our resident left-hander. We didn't even realize that he was a left-hander until this afternoon, and I texted him and asked if he is. So Bob Holt is a left-hander. He is also the outstanding sports writer for the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, and he's on our line right now. Hi, Bob. Happy Left-Handers Day.
Thanks for letting me know. I didn't know it was Left-Handers Day, but that's good to know.
Well, I'm sending a card in the mail. It'll come late because I found out that it's Left-Handers Day today too. So, but I'm right-handed, so it's not a holiday for me. What makes life a little bit more difficult for you as a left-hander than it would for somebody like me? Just one aspect that you notice day by day.
Well, one thing I noticed when I was a kid, and you'd write a lot of stuff in lead pencil. You know, you're writing from left to right, obviously, and your left hand is going across the paper. And when you got done on the side of your hand, you would have lead. I mean, it wasn't like lead poisoning or anything, which is lead from the pencil would be on your hand. But my mom was always really good about it. Like when I was a kid, she got me left-handed scissors, which people may think, well, what's that? But it has the shape of the scissors a little different. Because using right-handed scissors, if you're left-handed, pretty hard to do. But yeah, she'd get me little things that said, left-handed genius or something like that. I think she wanted to make sure I didn't feel, different. Because everybody else in my family was right-handed. My parents were right-handed. My brothers and sisters were right-handed. Obviously, I think about 85% of the world is right-handed. But a lot of, I think, allegedly. Left-handed people are supposed to be more creative. I don't know if that's true, but hopefully that's true.
Well, some of them just ask better questions than others. Maybe that's where you got it from, the whole left-handed thing. So, do you think we're going to hear an SEC schedule soon? If this league is as gung-ho as it seems right now as to at least holding the line, it's going to be at least a couple of weeks until we hear, I think, any kind of a decision about what will happen as far as the season happening. But do you think we may hear a schedule, like an actual week-by-week schedule in the next few days?
I would think so. I know the Big 12 put their schedule out, and as you said, I mean, we really don't know what's going to happen, if there'll be a season, if so, how long is it going to be. But I think if you're going to have the attitude that, we're proceeding, if you're the SEC, and your idea is, hey, we're proceeding with plans to play. Well, obviously, it'd be good for people to know who they're going to play in that opener and that first month and on and on. So I would think we'd have, a schedule with opponents and dates here in, maybe tomorrow or certainly by early next week. I think you got to proceed as if you're going to have a season. If you proceed as if you're going to have a season, then you should have a schedule. So hopefully that'll come out in the not too distant future.
Well, I mean, we did the next big thing to happen. It would be for practice to start, real practice in pads. And that's supposed to be next Monday. But I mean, we feel like it may be a little bit of a cautionary tale because the Big Ten had started practice this week and then banged the whole thing. So I think, though, the SEC is looking at this from a much different perspective. And I think it's not that we are convinced that you can or can't play football right now during a pandemic. It's that the full set of data is not available to what it's like when students return to campus to mix with student athletes. That's why I appreciate the stance that the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12 have taken. Do you think that the Big 10 and Pac-12 were too early with this postponement announcement?
I think they were. I mean, they may ultimately, be proven that it was the best call, especially if in a couple of weeks these other leagues say, yeah, you're right, this is just too dangerous or not safe enough to do this. But I don't know why you have to cancel, something in early August that it's not going to have for 6 weeks. As we've seen with this virus, I mean, things can change, day to day, certainly week to week and month to month. So, maybe they were worried about contact practices. But if your teams have been in a bubble, then, you should all be okay. And I know people talk about how this is in the NFL, it's not the NBA. You can't have all these teams in a bubble, but I think you can to a certain extent. Hunter Yurchek mentioned this the other day. Excuse me, when he was I think he might have mentioned this. I don't know if it was on Good Morning America or radio, ESPN radio interview, but to somebody on Monday, he talked about how, the players and probably a lot of other students are going to do online classes. I know they're bringing some back to campus, but I don't think they're going to bring 25,000 back. If they do, that's probably pretty nuts. But the players, they've obviously done a really good, Arkansas and a lot of other schools have done a really good job of keeping everybody safe with testing. And if guys test positive, they do tracing and they quarantine them and then they bring them back. And, Hunter said as of Monday, nobody on the team had a positive test, at that current time, and nobody was in quarantine. So if all the SEC schools are that vigilant, and then, as just as importantly, if the players, show good discipline and don't, kind of stay within their circle on the team, then I don't think it's out of the realm possibility to play a season and keep everybody safe. At least I think the schools owe the players that opportunity to see if it'll work. Maybe it won't, but to just shut the season down. You look at the summer. We didn't have full contact football, but we know there was a lot of baseball tournaments, including baseball leagues, including up here in Springdale. And people are playing soccer, they're playing Major League Baseball, NBA, different sports, tennis, golf. Not a lot of those don't have the contact football does, but it's been shown that you can compete in sports and stay safe. So I think college football deserves the opportunity to see if they can do that.
Speaking to Bob Holt here on Halftime, Bob, one of the things you've been seeing floating around on social media, especially right after the Big Ten and the Pac-12 announced their decisions, was all the players in an uproar that they want to play. Some of the coaches even voiced that. I think the one that voiced it the most was Nebraska, and talking about how if we're going to explore trying to play outside of the Big Ten and try to play into the SEC, Big 12, or whatever it may be. And the Big Ten commissioner quickly vetoed that idea. But I'm just curious from your perspective, do you think we'll see potentially, say, like a Ohio State join the Big 12 for a year, or is that pretty much a pop dream at this point?
Yeah, I don't see how that could happen. You're right. The Big Ten commissioner basically told, I think he was asked about what about Nebraska going rogue, and for a year anyway. And he basically said, well, they can go play whatever, but they won't be a member of the Big Ten. So you're not going to see Ohio State or Michigan, I don't believe, or anybody for that matter, play their own schedule and leave the Big Ten. I think that just isn't going to happen. It sounds good in theory, but in reality, I just, don't see how it could happen. The Big Ten's such a traditional conference, and I just can't see them turn on each other like that. Maybe I'm wrong, or maybe I'm being naive there, but I just don't see that happening.
I am curious to see, though, what this, and as of right now, there's no way that some of these players can transfer and leave or do anything like that. But I am curious, moving forward, if the SEC was to continue this and everything goes off successfully and they keep the virus mitigated and different things like that, the influx from the players leaving those two conferences and coming to these three, just for the perception that football means more to these three conferences down here. Do you think, maybe not necessarily right now, but in a few months, if this thing goes well, that you're going to start seeing a lot of these big-time Big Ten or Pac-12 players make their way down south to the Big 12, SEC, and ACC?
I think it definitely would. If the SEC, ACC, and Big 12 were able to successfully have a season, that's going to be a huge boost for recruiting, because the other teams would literally be, there on the sidelines. I'm not saying, Ohio State, Michigan drop football or not sign good players or whatever, but it would be a significant advantage, I think, for the leagues if they are able to play and finish, especially. And I don't see why you couldn't have, Clemson, Alabama, or whoever, playing for the playoff. I know, the Pac-12, honestly, is kind of a non-entity of the playoff. I guess Washington was in it a few years ago, but Oregon played Auburn for the title one year. But that's in there. Obviously, USC's, storied program, but for the most part, it's been SEC, ACC, and then Oklahoma's been in the playoffs a lot. So I really don't think it's out of their own possibility to have a legitimate playoff. Now, if they do make it through the season, have a playoff, crown national champion, there'll be an asterisk by it because there was no Big Ten and no Pac-12. But That would be a significant boost for those conferences that are able to play, and it would really be a punch to the gut for the Pac-12 and the Big Ten.
I want to get your thoughts real quick on a basketball question that I have, and we've pretty much the whole fall we've been looking for clarity with football, whether we're going to play or not, what the schedule's going to look like, who the two teams are going to be added. And I know we're still a few months away from basketball, but heck, you're going to blink your eye and we're going to be right on the crisp of October heading into November for basketball season. Do you think it's only a matter of time before basketball adopts the conference-only model in the SEC, or do you think there's still plenty of movement happening and that things could change before November rolls around?
Well, that's a good question. A lot of teams haven't put their schedules out yet in basketball, I think, for good reason. And basketball is a little different animal. Well, it's a different animal in a couple ways. One is you don't have 100 players in basketball or 85 or however many. You're not going to have 70 traveling. You're talking about maybe 15 players, and you wouldn't even have to take that many in terms of guys who really are going to play for you. On the other hand, it's also an indoor sport. I mean, I think it's been shown that the virus, it's safer for people to be outdoors than indoors. And then, crowds, supposedly the virus gets spread from people yelling and stuff. So you want to have like a big crowd inside basketball games. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. It wouldn't shock me if they tried to go to a conference-only model because for a couple of reasons. One, I think, the SEC teams have the money to do a lot of testing and follow a lot of these safety protocols. Other teams don't necessarily have the resources to do that. And also, if you have a conference-only schedule, you can be flexible. If there's a flare-up and, Kentucky has all of its starters out because they're quarantining, then the SEC could say, okay, well, we're going to put off Kentucky playing, kind of like what Major League Baseball has done with the Cardinals. We're going to postpone their games for a while, and the Conference could have some control over that where, you couldn't do that, say, if Arkansas was playing Oklahoma, in Tulsa. Obviously, that's a game we all want to see, but who knows if it'll come off or not. So, yeah, a lot of questions still to be answered for sure on this thing.
I don't think baseball planned for the 2-week layoff that St. Louis has dealt with, and I think we saw reports that their game tomorrow against the White Sox has also been postponed. So I think that's going to be there'll be 20 games that are postponed longer than 2 weeks. I just ask a quick Major League Baseball question of you, Bob, and then we'll let you go. I understand St. Louis has to try to finish the season if at all possible. But there's no way they can make up the games that they need to make up. So it's almost like the Cardinals would be disqualified from the standings the rest of the way, but they have to be out there and play if they have a chance to play. I don't know if Major League Baseball would have expected that sort of an outbreak that costs a team about 3 weeks.
Yeah, obviously the Marlins had that issue, but they were able to come back fairly quick. I know there's been talk about, like everybody might not be able to play the full 60-game schedule, and they'll do it based on winning percentage. But, it's one thing maybe if a team plays 55 games, 56, if a team's playing like 40, and you almost have to ask the Cardinal players, they'd like to have spring training again,
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure. We haven't studied enough to know why they keep getting delayed past the normal quarantine period, or why they can't bring some other guys up. And because I figured that's one of the reasons you had a 60-man roster. I understand you weren't necessarily supposed to call 15 guys up at a time or something, but I guess this all came about because the Cardinals unknowingly a player had the virus, and I guess he spread it on the plane and things like that. Even though they apparently were practicing social distancing and wearing masks and whatever. So, you really wonder about the Cardinals if they've lost this many games, can they really viably make it up? But then, you also, what about the teams that are supposed to play the Cardinals? So they're losing those games too. So it's kind of a big mess when it comes to the Cardinals, unfortunately.
Sure is. Bob, appreciate your time. Have a great rest of the week. And again, happy Left-Handers Day.
Okay, thanks, and happy Left-Handers Day to all the left-handers out there.
There we go.
To you righties, happy Thursday. We'll just leave it at that. Go to
this
906.
Day means nothing to them.
No, nothing at all. 906 Cocktail and Cigar Lounge has been open for a little more than 2 months since the shutdown. Tonight you can get over there, 4 p.m., happy hour, and they're open until midnight. Over the weekend, Friday and Saturday, open until 1. Tonight from 7 to 10, songs from the 70s from Bill Remseman. You can go to 906 Cocktail and Cigar Lounge on Facebook to find out all their specials and events. 906 is abiding by all the guidelines with social distancing, state-of-the-art airflow system. Indoors will make sure you have the freshest environment at 906. That's 906 Cocktail and Cigar Lounge, 906 Garrison Avenue, downtown Fort Smith. First hour wraps up after the break. Stay tuned.